Hello everyone, this is the second episode of our exciting series of iconic ads with Devleena and Saurabh by Icons Behind Brands. I'm your host Devleena and we have our co-host Saurabh Bajaj. Hi Saurabh.
Hi guys, hi audience.
Saurabh, last time you remember we spoke about the Khali ad, right? This
That's right.
this time I'm thinking to bring something different from that ad.
I think there have been so many exciting pieces of work that have been done over the years, and we should surely pick up something really engaging.
And we should pick up something which is very different from what we have discussed last time.
Absolutely. So, from the world of cement building materials, how far can we go?
Let's see. So, sort of, we all have been working or doing some other thing all the time. And this is the time where it is portrayed that being busy is the cool thing. You know. So,
Yeah. In fact, if you go online on LinkedIn, it's all about hustling. It's all about making the most of every minute. It's about, basically driving yourself crazy with work.
very true. A lot of time we feel about like if we are not working, we feel guilt about it, right? So
Absolutely.
there were two characters, if you remember, from an ad telling us and the world about taking a break, like कभी कुछ ना करके भी देखिए. Do you remember that?
Yeah, in fact, I think that's always a shocking message in today's times, right? Who would ever say कि कुछ ना करो?
Do nothing. Yeah, because see, this is a reality. You cannot keep hustling all the time. So, do you remember that particular ad, Saurabh?
If I remember right, it was 5 star, was it not?
Yes, and those characters.
Yeah, I think Ramesh and Suresh, who better than Ramesh and Suresh?
Absolutely. I literally started loving those characters, even though, I mean, when the ad started, I mean, I never liked them initially, but, the way it gradually moved with that character and doing nothing, I really liked the character and associated
Yeah, I know.
also in the character.
I think they sort of grow on you, and it becomes a part of culture now. Almost so. When you have somebody saying ki वो Ramesh Suresh wala moment, you know what they're talking about.
Yes, Are Ramesh, Are Suresh kind of moments.
Absolutely. So it'll be great fun to explore that. So, were you able to find any, friends in your contacts?
Yes, so that's what, I just went into my connects and I thought, let me, invite a guest who has actually worked very closely for this five-star Ramesh Suresh ka ad. And I'm sure we are going to, peek into the behind the scenes and some of the insights and, core stories about this particular ad. So why don't we call him?
Absolutely. Let's start with it.
Guest for today is Mr. Ganapathy Balagopalan, who is a head of strategic planning, Ogilvy West and East, Ogilvy India. With over 2 decades of experience, Ganapathy has worked with various Indian and international brands like Cadbury, ITC, Videocon, Asian Paints, and many more. And today we are going to talk about one of those iconic ads we grew up watching, Cadbury 5-star, Jo Khaye Kho Jaye campaign. A warm welcome to you, Ganapathy.
Hello, great to be here.
Yes,
Great.
warm welcome to both of you, and I'm just so excited to start this new series. And before I get into the campaign detail, I would love to understand your journey and background and your association with Cadbury.
Been a fixture at Ogilvy for pretty long now, nearly 20 years. Cadbury happened about maybe 16 years back.
Pretty long.
I've been on Cadbury ever since. So, I started in planning, wandered into advertising, then wandered into planning. Madhukar was super nice to let me into planning. Madhukar incidentally set up planning in Ogilvy, he's vice chairman of the company. And when I started my planning stint on Cadbury, and I've been on Cadbury ever since.
Good to know about you, Ganapathy, and we would love to know about this iconic ads which we grew up, watching. Jo Khai Kho Jaye, Ramesh Suresh ad campaigns. Like a little overview about it. Whose brainchild is this? Which agency, person, which year? So a little, before we start it is going to set the context of the conversation.
But somewhere during the late 90s, and then by the time we got to the early 2000s, things had begun to slacken for the brand, and it wasn't quite the brand it used to be. It felt a little fuddy-duddy, out of touch with the times, and that was a task. And we realized, unlike other chocolates, 5-star is like a foreground eat. You could eat something and do something when you're eating a dairy milk. You could still pop a little piece and then you could have a conversation. You could be doing something. But when you do 5-star, it gets your undivided attention. You can't do anything else. Right? Try doing it. And you'll realize that's just how that product is built. The only thing you can pay attention to is 5-star. It demands your whole and complete attention. That's just how the product is, right? It's what we call the foreground eat. So we started working on that idea, and the first one was a caravan commercial. I don't know if you recall that one. It's a bunch of guys lazing around, and then they eat a 5-star, and it quite literally Jo Khai Kho Jaye. That became the articulation that we came up with, and parts of the body disappearing, right? When you eat 5-star. So Jo Khai Kho Jaye. So the advice that we gave out to people was, you don't eat like bits and pieces of 5-star, you eat it whole. I mean, yaad rakhna puri khana. And that's what we told people. But that ad had 2-3 guys in it, but 2 of those guys were the ones who went on eventually to become Ramesh and Suresh. A point where a script came, which I think was in 2007. So Ramesh Suresh kind of came out of Amitabh's head one fine day when we were arguing and figuring out how to kind of move from that physical manifestation of Jo Khai Kho Jaye, where body parts disappeared, and take it one level above. And that was great. I mean, we made a very literal version of the proposition, and it worked just fine, right? But that advertising suddenly made us the slacker brand. This whole caravan commercial turned us into the slacker brand, a brand for the lost, right? Young people don't really arguably have the patience, the focus. They're given to a bit of daydreaming, right? And the world you lived in somehow was always about whipping them and telling them, stay focused, get ahead, study, focus. And somewhere that's not what young people do. Young people daydream. I mean, they want to see what can be, fantasize. And somewhere 5-star kind of provided legitimacy, arguably, for people to just sit back and daydream a bit. The first commercial, interestingly, wasn't the one which got made. The first commercial that he thought of was Taylor. Right. Taylor is Ek Bilang Choti Kar. Ek Bilang wasn't a part of the script, by the way. That's the magic Prasoon bot added to it. One little thing which got stuck in people's head, right? When you think of that commercial, the first thing that comes to mind is Ek Bilang Choti Kar. Master Ji Ek Bilang Choti Kar. That was the first script he came up with, and then somewhere in the many discussions, the other script that came up was the shopkeeper script, where these 2 guys meet. They take a bite, and every time they go, "Are Ramesh tu? Are Ramesh? Are Suresh tu?" So that just kept happening. Itna badal gaya to that whole temporary amnesia thing that got cracked as a way of bringing alive loss. Yeah, that pretty much invented Ramesh Suresh. That was the moment, right? First script became the second script because Nikhil thought the shop was a great introduction, because that's the first time they say, "Are Ramesh tu, Are Suresh." It's almost like they're meeting for the first time after a long time. We reversed the sequence, and that became the first ad to get made. And then, I think little later, I think not too long after, we made the second one, which was Taylor. In between, I think we took a quick detour where commercial called Thief, where we asked people to help those who eat 5-star. You get lost and then you become helpless, and then you tell people that you should help those who eat 5-star because they're not capable of helping themselves. But that didn't give the protagonist enough of a role, right? I mean, the brand, it wasn't bringing out the brand personality as well as one would have liked. So we went back quite quickly to Ramesh Suresh, and this time, we came back, I think, with the Taylor piece, which created magic.
Super.
So Devleena, let me just enter and share some of my perspective. Yeah, given there is that I was on the client side, not really on the brand, but I was seeing all that was going on. So, to give another, build to the story that, Ganpathy was narrating to us. And of course, it's a tale that you can all get lost in. But, if you see the early 90s or the early, the 90s when Five Star was there, Five Star was literally trying to show the target group. They would literally be trying to show the young people, young people in their cars and their bikes, or the whole energy, the zing. So they were just trying to show what young people probably wanted to feel like or be seen like. Yeah, I think the difference that the Five Stars commercials brought about is about they help understand what consumers were actually feeling. So from what they wanted to be seen like, instead of being seen as cool, what they were actually feeling, and what they were feeling was, the rush of the world around them, the need to take a break, need to slow down, and to allow themselves the luxury of just getting lost for a few minutes to that chocolate. Yeah, and I think that is the magic of what Ogilvy did indeed create. And if I go back to the conversations that were happening in the hallways after the Five Star ad was cracked, was about the fact that we have always been a youthful brand, but maybe this piece of understanding helps us become a youth icon. We become an ad which is iconic in the youth, and I think an ad or a piece of creative becomes iconic when the TG actually associates themselves with it. A lot of brands like to show the TG. But if you can get under the skin of the TG, if you can empathize with how they are feeling, I think that's when you start becoming a cult brand or becoming an iconic brand. And I think that's the magic that, unfolded through the entire Ramesh Suresh process.
Superb. Thanks for bringing that insights, Saurabh. The objective, how to associate with your TG. When you connect with them, that's how, you become the iconic ads, right? And what I liked about the whole, concept about Five Star joke hai, first, the aha moment came when you found that, okay, you get lost, once you eat Five Star, and then you will keep, you're just finding the multi-dimensional way to get lost. So, it is just the journey and finding a different ways and different campaigns, different ads about that campaign, right?
Yeah, no, I think the goosebump moment that really happens, as Ganpathy said so well, is, when you get that perfect articulation. So I think that lovely magical articulation of, you don't eat a Five Star, the Five Star consumes you. I think that was really a piece of creative brilliance, just that articulation. And that when it was transferred into the Caravan film where, you are eating a part of it and there's a part of it literally disappearing, I think that was amazing. And then what was even more amazing is the way the TG was shown, the protagonist was shown, instead of the whole goal of trying to show, protagonists which are very cool and they are very, they are, very affluent or they are very modern. They actually showed consumers which are very real and how they really wanted to feel. I think that reverence which was brought about in the creative piece of work is what really made it so Indian.
Right, and that worked as a breather at the time when, everybody was like, as Ganpathy said, focus, be alert, be focused. And at that time, you are talking about the real things that, okay, just get lost in your thoughts, just go and, breathe. So I think that worked, pretty well with the youngsters.
I think part of the reason it worked was, this is counterculture, right? The culture says focus, run after getting into IITs, IIMs, whatever that might be. So the pressure is so intense on young people. The expectation is you have no time to slack. The moment you kind of want to pull back, sit back, take a pause, that's kind of seen as something that's bad. And the truth is most young people know they're not quite in the same league as the small number of people who make it to these elite institutions. So in many ways, a lot of them are very given to daydreaming. So you do want the license to be able to do that, and this brand kind of gave them that license in many ways.
Yeah. No, in fact, building on what Ganpathy was saying, I think while Cadbury had a fairly good run from 1995 to 2000, where the whole Mithas campaigns were democratizing chocolates while they were allowing everybody to eat it. I think somewhere in the early 2000s, the overall company had a bit of a growth crisis, and there was in fact the infestation crisis in 2003 that almost brought a lot of brands to its name. And I think Five Star was also one of those brands which was not doing particularly well. And like Ganapathy said, it had become fuddy-duddy, it had become old. There was no newness or freshness in the campaign. And I think India was also changing at that time. India was changing from the 90s, which was about glamour, the Shah Rukh Khans and the film stars and the global brands of the world, to a place where Indians were starting to find their own confidence, their own identity. And I think that was a time where a lot of brands embraced the quirkiness that we all have, right? They allowed people to be themselves. And I think this whole, grabbing the pulse of the nation or grabbing the pulse of what the youth wanted to feel like, I think is what Five Star did in solving the business problem of reigniting relevance and growth for the brand.
That's really well put. I mean, the task was reigniting relevance and growth for the brand, because the focus had become so single-mindedly, arguably from moving from kids to adults. There is something in between, right? The teenagers, which are the single largest population in this country, and there needs to be something that appeals to them. Here is a brand which is always appealed to them. You needed to find a way of making it relevant for that audience again.
Right. So who was the target audience that time? I mean, maybe you were merging the target audience, or let's talk about like that.
No, not at all. It's always been a young people's brand, and it continued to be a young people's brand. The question is, how do you stay relevant and desirable to young people? The focus was on how do you make this brand cool for young people.
Yeah.
It's ugly word. I don't like it too much, but all brands want to be cool, right? But yeah, we wanted to be.
What I was saying is, most companies have a portfolio strategy where, for example, Dairy Milk will be for the family, Gems might be for children, and I think the portfolio strategy for Five Star was also clearly strategically youth, and I would say maybe SEC AB youth, which is the rump of the Indian masses. Had to cut across and make it very aspirational for overall youth brands. I think that's really was the target group.
So, what was the creative idea or solutions, that the brand decided to step in that time?
So we had to create the desire to be consumed by a Five-Star, right? That was the idea. You don't eat a Five-Star eats. Quite literally, we converted the consumer experience into the brand proposition. Lost in Five-Star, which is jo khaye ho jaye. But obviously, we had to do more than just that, right? We can't just tell a product story. We had to find a way of changing the brand image. The core issue was the brand image.
Devleena?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, I think Ganapathy has encompassed it really beautifully, but just to sort of add to it, we as marketeers tend to find that intersection, that Venn diagram of, where does the brand truth collide or the product truth collide along with the consumer truth. So as, Ganapathy said, the product truth was that, the product consumes you because of its chewy, caramel, indulgent eat. You cannot do anything else while having a Five-Star. You have to just focus on the product. And the consumer truth was that the consumer was seeking a break. They were seeking a break from the hustle bustle, the pressure, the constant running, the constant need for achievement, and they needed a moment for themselves. So I think the product truth and the consumer truth, they just came together and the magic unfolded. That Five-Star is essentially that, welcome break, that, you allow the product to consume you, and you are really free of all your, other hustles.
So summarized very well, what exactly you wanted the consumer. So I just wanted to get an understanding about, you wanted the consumer to be perceived this way, just feel lost, daydreaming and all. So what was the impact on consumers' mind that time exactly? In the real time, and what was the mind shift you experienced?
I think we legitimized lacking a little bit, right? We became this brand for the lost generation, an experience that you can get lost in. That's what the brand was, for the lost generation. So it's okay to be lost sometimes. We weren't saying stay lost or anything like that, but everyone wants to kind of daydream a bit.
Break it.
There is a brand which kind of legitimized that for young
Saurabh, you would like to pull some threads here?
Okay, so just adding to what Ganapathy said, I think as we saw the Gen Xs, which were born into a time where they could achieve their dreams. The Indian economy allowed people to earn money, seek achievement, find their jobs in MNCs. As we had the rise of the millennials, millennials were born into a space of relative abundance, while they still are in this hyper competitive nation of 1.3 billion people. But they were at a time where, your success in your social group is not just the rank that you get or how much of money you have at home, but it is actually the richness of experiences that you have. And to have experiences, to learn something new, you also have to learn to liberate yourself. You need to be able to break away from the daily monotony, give some time to think, experience various dimensions of yourself. And I was seeing this fascinating TED talk recently, where this TED talk says that when you get bored, when you allow your mind to rest, you're actually your most creative and productive self, because actually your brain is able to make connections and find creativity, which you can't in a humdrum. Right. So there is actually a scientific background towards allowing yourself to get lost. When you allow yourself to get lost, you allow your brain to rest, you can actually unleash your creativity. And while that might not have been the intention of 5-star, but that piece of allowing consumers to relax, allowing millennials to explore, allowing your mind to rest, and you're allowing yourself to just mull yourself by doing nothing, I think is really the purpose that 5-star brought to the table. And I think it is really, really fascinating. So I would say that, there's a reason why that brand has got so much love for the youth, from the youth. The reason why it has got so much love from the youth is because it is really a communication in touch with the times and in touch with not just what consumers are seeking, but in touch with what they need to do to probably be a better version of themselves.
True. And thank you for bringing that point, Saurabh, that when we actually rest, when we are doing nothing, that time your subconscious mind helps you to become more creative, and you get all those, aha moments and creative, iconic ideas, which is a game changer for life and brands, right? So I think that's a great point to add on here. Okay. So, Ganapathy, if you help us, why did that work? I mean, as you, what you feel like the strategic timings, or maybe, some behind the scenes on that, why did that particular campaign worked?
I think we spoke about why the campaign worked. But the bigger thing over here is what did we manage to do for 5-star? I mean, we turned 5-star into an attitude, right? Something that's non-serious, light-hearted, irreverent, uninhibited, unself-conscious even, unafraid of ridicule. And all the things that prevent people from being spontaneous, doing what they like and zoning out a little bit. Why are you afraid of doing those things? It's because you're worried about what others might say, others might think, what the world wants of you. We'll go back to Sharman Joshi in 3 Idiots, right? When he's this guy who feels intensely the pressure of being, doing, conforming to others' expectations, delivering on responsibilities that he sees, things that are expected of him. And where did that get him, right? So somewhere I think lots of people feel like that. Lots of young people feel like that in many, many ways, right? This is where you feel no pressure to be someone, put up an act.
In fact, Ganapathy has shared this lovely story of these 2 girls who were having their Ramesh Suresh moment. Ganapathy, why did you share that? That was quite intriguing.
So I was somewhere and I found 2 girls were having a conversation, and then one girl asked the other one, "Tu kisi aur se milti hai kya?" And the reply, she said, "हम लोग मिलते हैं रमेश सुरेश जैसे." That's when you know it's really working.
Okay.
Right? It's become part of culture, right?
Yes.
And it's always a nice feeling to know stuff that we create somehow kind of inveiges its way into culture.
Yeah, it's like a Jai Viru kind of relationship Ramesh Suresh created. Right. Yes.
So if you're replacing Jai Viru then or Ram Lakhan, then that feels pretty good.
Then it's Ramesh Suresh. Yeah. Yes. So, yes, Saurabh, you have something to ask here?
So, I think, very, very lovely piece of creative, Ganpati. I think we all have really grown up with Five Star, loved it. Why don't you now tell us about some of the recent stuff that Five Star is doing? I mean, I loved the whole, Island Valentine's Day film, the whole Bitcoin bank. So, you may or may not have been directly working on these campaigns, but, how do you feel the proposition has evolved? Do you think it's become more true? And, what's really going on even as external observer?
I don't think one of the things that happened. It's actually okay. We're jumping over here a little bit. Let's go back to how this brand did. Right, once Ramesh Suresh started happening, and there were a series of Ramesh Suresh commercials that happened over the between say 2007 and 2011, which were arguably the wonderful years for Five Star, growing like a blistering pace. I think huge growths. Till the point where the supply couldn't keep up with demand. Of course, not just on Five Star. I think there was some supply challenge at a broader level at Cadbury. And by the time that got resolved, obviously we had lie low for a couple of years. And when you're running at like top speed, and then you push the brakes, it takes a bit for momentum to kind of return, right? So that's pretty much what happened on Five Star. We had to kind of restore the momentum on the brand. Ramesh Suresh continued for some more time, I think, until about 2018. You'd recognize that Ramesh Suresh was also getting old, right? I mean, they couldn't pass off for teenagers, or well, they certainly never looked like teenagers, but they couldn't pass off for young people anymore, right? So we had to kind of move on, replace, and all great things need to evolve. Ramesh Suresh had done exceedingly well for us for almost well over a decade almost. Right?
Yeah. So I think when the first Do Nothing films came out, right, with the dog and the granny with the where the chair gets crushed and she gets up, they were absolutely hilarious, extremely bold. And I think there was a lot of criticism as well, where there were a lot of people over intellectualizing it, saying that how can you endorse laziness? Are you saying that the current generation is only very lazy and not wanting to do anything? And I think for anything to be successful, it also has to be a bit polarizing some things. So what do you think, Ganpati?
No, that's really where it came from, right? The older generation always seems to think the younger generation isn't as hardworking as they were. हमारे ज़माने में हम इतना मेहनत करते थे, आजकल तो आपको सब कुछ इतने आसानी से मिलता है. People are always droning on about how young people are lazy, not working so hard. The truth be told, I think the young generation today is as hardworking, if not more hardworking than earlier generations. Surely things have gotten much tougher than they were for the previous generation. Everything is more difficult, more competitive today than it was perhaps some years back. And that's really the heart of the issue, right? Pressure, therefore, on young people is so immense and so crushing. And the Three Idiots analogy is kind of hard to escape, right? I mean, that's really how bad it is. The guy who... So, well, this is a brand which speaks with a lot of levity, with a lightness, but then the issues that consumers live with and the ones that it addresses are fairly dark ones, right? So it's really tough being a young person today. There are lots of movies and shows and things like that which are addressing all of those issues that stem from pressure. We do it with a lot of lightness, and I think that's the reason the brand works. It's not drawing attention to the issues as much as legitimizing the solution, which is to not take things so seriously and not get crushed by that pressure. So it kind of creates this pressure release valve you have in a pressure cooker, right? Some steam which lets out the steam so it doesn't build up inside. So Five Star in many ways is that brand which legitimizes people to sit back and do nothing for a while. That's what it is, and that's the reason I think it works so well.
From a cultural context.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying from a cultural context, some of the other references which seem intriguing for me now that you mention it is really the Squid Games. Where Squid Games was one of the world's most watched programs, and probably at some level it was about the fact that the economy, in South Korea is tough. The youth there is, having so many struggles with regards to making their ends meet, and it's a high pressure world that we possibly live in. Yeah. And then, when I interact with a lot of youngsters in today's days, because of the whole pressure of the pandemic, sitting in home for 2 years, they are, working overtime, trying to take on some internships along with their college, do multiple internships. There's this hustle culture where there seems to be a need to maximize every moment, make even your time of entertainment productive by, writing on the social media portals in a manner which is serious. So, there is this, I think, intense competition that we all live in. And I think globally, the competition is not really relenting anytime soon. And I think in this kind of a world, if you have a brand like Five Star, which is a large brand and it's got a voice and it can speak with levity and it can release some of the pressure, I think it's actually doing more purposeful marketing than probably many other brands.
Large part of success, I think, is owing to the fact that we live in a world that takes itself too seriously. I know we have another brand which is waded into that territory today, but in a very different sort of way, right? But the reason it works is the brand that laughs at itself. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And most brands take themselves too seriously. They want to project this image of being cool, and they think if they don't appear cool, young people are not going to like them. The fact that you're being so authentic, you're willing to look silly, you're willing to laugh at yourself, it's not something that you see very often in marketing. And I think that's the reason why that's arguably where a lot of the appeal for Five Star comes from for young people, right? It's very authentic.
Yeah. Saurabh, you would like to summarize this?
Yeah. No, so I think lovely conversation, and I think we have really, really enjoyed this entire journey, right? Of a brand which is so irreverent, so nice, so peaceful, where we've just seen the advertising, but I don't think it's so easy for anybody to understand all the thinking that went behind it. All the ways that it actually impacts the consumer. How it actually plays a larger role of diffusing pressure. How a brand which is so rooted in the product, the fact that it's finally a nice consuming eat, has managed to traverse the journey into people's lives in a manner that, it actually is a savior. It really reduces pressure, and it is in touch with their reality. And I think that's the journey for brands in terms of becoming iconic in our lives. And Five Star is surely one of them. And hats off to the creativity of Ogilvy and the lovely role that Ganapathy has played in it. Ganapathy is a person that I have known for a very, very long time and an extremely insightful person. So I think it's a treat for me, and I'm sure for a lot of your users, viewers to have Ganapathy on the floor.
Super flattered, but then I think this brand was, not just this brand, any brand has so many people who help kind of shape it. Most certainly clients who are the ones who stick their neck out and buy the work and invest in the work that eventually builds the brand.
And through the journey, whatever you have witnessed, and you took us to that journey and took us to the time back, and that is how I personally enjoyed a lot. Saurabh, you and Ganapathy, thank you for bringing out so much insights and the real stories from the campaign here.
Thank you, Devleena, for having me on this.
That was an interesting conversation. Saurabh, from this conversation, what are the 3 takeaways or learnings you would like to share with our audience?
Great. No, I think this has been one of the most fascinating conversations that I've ever done. And, I've really, really enjoyed this. Ramesh Suresh is truly iconic for many reasons. And this is one of those ads that I think if you were to do a vote around the country, most people will say is definitely iconic, right? Now, what makes it iconic? The first thing that makes this iconic is that a lot of brands are able to blend into culture, right? But it takes a lot of guts to take a counter-culture narrative. So if everybody is talking about, corruption, it's easy to talk about, fighting against corruption. If everybody is talking about hustling, it is easy to talk about how my product makes you hustle faster. Like you see the recent Nescafe ads. But taking a counter-culture narrative, where the narrative is around progress, is about getting ahead in society, and somebody says do nothing, that really rings a bell in somebody's ear. Second, it starts a very productive discussion and dialogue in society, right? So if you are able to take up a counterculture stance, you are largely able to get the right dialogue happening in society and able to to really, get that kind of stickiness. So I think that for me is the first learning, that, don't be afraid to take a counterculture stance.
Mm-hmm.
The second big learning for me is, how there is a stickiness in a large idea, and how that idea can come to multiple creative edits and even activations. So if you see in recent times, Five Star has not just stuck on since 2005 to this idea of Ramesh Suresh and really, relaxing yourself, evolving it to do nothing. But they have talked about a do nothing coin. They've talked about a Valentine's Day film, which says, I'll send you to my cousin's wedding, which happens to be an island that they have bought. So, if you have a really sticky and a beautiful idea, the ability to, build not just advertising around it, but also engagement and activation. I think that is the second big learning. And hence, you have to really work hard to find the large idea which can enable all these possibilities. Mm-hmm. The third is about owning a unique blend of humor, a unique set of assets. See, we have all heard about the Dairy Milk glass and a half. We have seen the Titan music. There are so many ways that brand used to build memorability, right? But what this brand has used to build memorability is first these two characters, Ramesh Suresh, and then the unique blend of humor, the slapstick blend of humor that has really become their creative asset, right? And hence, what is that creative asset or tone of voice that you are investing, right? And hence, the three big learnings for me is: one, don't be afraid to take a counterculture stance. Second, build an creative idea which can move from advertising to activation. And third, own a unique tone of voice which you're able to hold consistently, right? So that when you turn up, you might change your proposition, but it is a unique tone of voice that builds memorability, right? So for me, these are the three, power pack learnings and the key takeaways for our audience.
I'm sure, Saurabh, I mean, in a nutshell, these are really powerful learnings and takeaways for creating any TV commercial or any campaigns, because as you said, it's not just, that particular TV commercial. It is, the thought process should be for the long term, so that, we can engage the audience for a long term way with activations and multiple campaigns. So I feel it's really powerful takeaways, Saurabh. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. No, it's been a absolutely great conversation, and look forward to more.
Amazing. Saurabh, I'm also looking forward for more such conversation. It's really exciting and lots of learning in a very light way and in a very humorous way we all are having. So what do you think? I mean, what should we bring in the next episode? Yeah.
I think one of the things that we owe our audience is to really cover as wide a spectrum or as wide a gamut of marketing as possible, right? So, we have now done infrastructure, cement. We have done consumer products, right? Chocolates. And now I think we should move on to a new sector, so great idea. So I think let's pick up financial services next. I think what better than insurance? Insurance is something that is known to create these scary dairy ads, but picking up the threads from Five Star, like they created a unique blend of humor. Maybe there's a brand out there, which is probably small, but got a lot of mind share by using a unique blend of humor.
So I remember when we talk about finances, it's mostly mutual funds and insurance on that side, but these are very serious segments. Bringing
right.
the lightness and the humor in these serious segments. I remember, Bharti AXA has done some campaigns, which was light. So if you say, why don't we bring that, conversation in our table?
Sounds absolutely brilliant. I think Bharti AXA with those, really unique ads from over a decade back, where had this twisting, turning of frames, those lovely, iconic Hindi music on the background. I think that would be really interesting. So I think it's time for you to dive into your contacts again, Devleena.
Let me get back to the contacts again, and let me find out somebody who can actually bring out the stories of the campaigns, Bharti AXA. and insurance segment. So let's do that. Let's do that.
Looking forward to next week.
Yes.